Fully engaged, yet fully surrendered. The miracle mindset. The mind of a child. Open to everything, yet attached to nothing. And you say, which is it? I want somebody to tell me. You know, so much in American religion nowadays is about certainty. About having everything locked down and figured out. About having all the answers. Rumi, the great mystic, wrote, sell your certainty and purchase openness. What did he call it? Not ambiguity, but bewilderment. Purchase openness and bewilderment. Bewilderment. Not knowing what's going on. Jesus put it, give us this day our daily bread. That sounds pretty certain, doesn't it? Except for it's just the daily bread, the manna that showed up for the children of Israel that day, which if they stored it up, wouldn't be there the next day. So, give us this day our daily bread is saying, I know I'm provided for in the now moment, but I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. So you say, which is it? Fully engaged or fully surrendered? And the answer is yes. Which is it? A mind that is open to everything or attached to nothing? Yes. You say, well, how will I know? You'll know. Gandhi said that people could never figure him out. And the reason why is why he won so many of the parts of the chess game with the British Empire, which he ultimately won, was because he'd make a move nobody expected, including himself. He was guided in the moment. Jesus was fully engaged and fully surrendered, but not in a predictable way. There were times that he completely avoided the issue. He disappeared into a crowd. He got on a boat and he got out of there. If there was some danger, he hightailed it around and went around the problem. He avoided the conflict and the difficulty. And other times, he met it squarely head on. He turned over the tables, the money changers in the temple, and spoke truth to power. Which did he do when? And the answer is yes. When? Only your intuition knows. Only the mind of a child knows. A child knows. A child knows that they know. There's a child in you that knows that they know. And knows when they don't know. And knows when it's appropriate not to know. Oh, I'm speaking so enigmatically here. It's probably driving some people crazy. But be in the moment. Be in the moment. Be fully surrendered and fully engaged. Have a mind of the child that's open to everything and yet attached to nothing. Open to everything. Open to everything. Rosalie was just barely old enough to understand what a TV commercial was. And she was watching some cartoon, and there was a commercial for Barbie, and Barbie's dream house, and Barbie's clothes, and Barbie's car, and Barbie's this, and Barbie's that. And it was this big, new Barbie thing, and she said, I want that. How about you give me all that? We said, now, honey, you can't always get everything that you want. How about you give me some of it? The child is open. The child is always open. The child is open. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching said, my mind is like the face of a baby before it learns how to smile. What is that? The innocence, the wonder. You say, but I want to have it together. I want to get in there. I want to dress for success. I want to be somebody. I want to make a difference. I want to make a statement. I want to make a stand in the world and show everybody what's what. And you know what? That only goes so far. There's a time to let go of the outcomes. The mind of a child. Jesus said, it's becoming as a child, and without that attitude, we cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. So how do you do that? You let go, and that's why your spiritual practices are so important, because that's when you get in touch with the intuition that knows when to hold them, when to fold them, when to walk away, and when to run. I know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to walk away, and when to run. Together? I know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to walk away, when to run. You know when you are supposed to zig. You know when you're supposed to zag. You are fully surrendered and fully engaged. You have a mind of a child, open to everything but attached to nothing. And then you're able to navigate through the difficult times of life in a way that can appreciate things but let go of the outcomes. My mom is here this morning. Mom, will you stand so everybody can give you your gift? And in the year 1990, I decided that Mom needed to learn how to ski. What was I thinking? So we decided to meet in, my sister, my mom would fly up from San Francisco and I flew in from Florida. And we met in Vancouver, British Columbia to go to Whistler and she would learn how to ski. The problem was that two things. I met her at the airport and she said that she and my sister were going to leave the day before New Year's. Well, I was going to stay through New Year's. I thought that's what we agreed to. And suddenly it dawned on me, I'm going to be alone in a foreign country, knowing nobody on New Year's Eve. Oh, what a drag that is. And then it started snowing and snowing and snowing. In Vancouver, they get very little snow. They get less snow than Portland or Seattle. Yeah, because of the water currents for some reason. And so they don't have plows. They barely have any snow at all. They had 36 inches of snow in 24 hours. Everything shut down. They didn't even hardly have snow shovels to get the sidewalks. And so everything stopped. And so I really said this, thank you, God, for the best New Year's Eve of my life. Because I was not only going to be with nobody I knew, I was going to be in an area that was totally snowed in. Thank you, God, for the best New Year's Eve of my life. I had the attitude of a child. Totally engaged, but totally surrendered. Open to everything, but attached to nothing. And right after that, I went down to the lobby, and my eye turned around, and there was a little bulletin board. I found myself walking over. There was a little sign that said, volunteers needed for First Night, which was their citywide, alcohol-free New Year's Eve celebration with, shows and entertainment, and it was a big thing. Tens of thousands of people were supposed to show up for this thing, and they said they needed volunteers, so I called the number, and they said, oh, it's way too late for that. Where'd you see this thing? I said, well, I just saw it on a bulletin board. No, we should have taken that down a long time ago. We filled all the positions, and besides, you couldn't possibly get down here. I said, where are you? The Hotel Vancouver. I said, what floor? They said, second. I said, I'm on the 6th. They said, well, it isn't going to work because we filled all the positions except for the MC. I said, well, there's somebody had to have canceled because of the snow. They said, only the MC. They can't make it in. And we're not sure what to do, but there's no way that you would qualify for that. I talked my way, I said, I'll be right down. I talked my way, and I was the MC for the city of Vancouver. Was that the best New Year's Eve ever? This is something called divine disorder, or Devorn Eider. You have an idea in mind, you know what's going to happen, and it ain't that. It's another thing, and you open up to allowing things to be, and then a mind is open to everything, but attached to nothing. If they'd said, no, we can't help you, I would have been okay with that. Think about this in your life. Where have you had lots and lots and lots of plans, and you felt it was so unjust? Where did you get told something was going to be a certain way, and it was so unjust? Charles and Myrtle Fillmore had their lives all figured out. In the year 1890, they were worth in the 8 figures in our money. They were multi-millionaires, very wealthy, and so they retired and became spiritual. And they were going to be spiritual, and they had all this money, and they didn't really have to work, so they could go and pray with people and teach people, but kind of leisurely and do their own thing. And then the crash of 1890 came, and they lost everything. They didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. They couldn't even get Christmas presents for their kids. Everything had crashed down. And in the year 1929 and 30, they wrote in Unity magazine in the face of the new Depression, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be here today because we had to form Silent Unity. We had to do our Sunday services. We had to do our publications. We, out of necessity, had to exercise the faith that allowed us to go ahead. So you have an idea in your mind, You have to be open to everything but attached to nothing. The miracle mindset is fully surrendered and fully engaged. Fully engaged within, with your mind open, your eyes open, your inner mind and eyes open, and then you let go of all the things in the outer world. I had a picture of what my life was going to be like, because you see, I knew I was going to become a Unity minister sometime in my mid-40s. I was in my early 20s, and a friend of mine said, I'm going to be a fireman. Will you keep me company while I take the test? So I said, sure. I had a day off, so I went down there, and he took the test, and I barely passed. I weighed 127 pounds. I could barely do anything. But I did. By 1 pound, I qualified. I did the thing, and then they took the written test. And I just was doing it to keep him company. I wasn't going to go ahead with this thing. Turned out the test was hardware tools. I grew up in a hardware store, my dad's hardware store. I got the 5th highest out of 1,200 scores, and they put me into, they put me in there, and he never qualified. He never made it. Well, I wasn't interested, except for then I found out, well, you work for 20 years, you get 2 days off and 1 day on. And that's the schedule, 2 days off. I could deal with that. It was a union job, fabulous pay. And then at the end of 20 years, I would retire at full salary, and I could be a minister and not have to worry about anything. Golden. And I even knew who I was going to spend my life with. I haven't seen her in decades. I had all those things all figured out. And then I went to the firefighter training, whereupon I did everything they asked me to do. They said, during the exit interview, which was the fastest anyone had ever flunked out, by the way. They were careful to let me know that. They said, you've done everything we've asked you to do, but you're not having a very good time here, are you? I said, no, I'm not really. You really didn't want to be a firefighter, did you? No, I really didn't. Well, it shows. You know, you're able to do everything, but what we're worried about is that the citizens of our county will see you out there and, well, they'll lose confidence in their fire departments to fight the fires. So I was going, oh, this is so unjust. And the only thing I could do in the face of that was go ahead with the plan to become a minister 20 years earlier. Hello? You know? So where in your life do you need to let go? Where you need to be fully engaged, yet fully surrendered? Fully engaged means you let yourself feel what you're feeling without marinating in your feelings. You let yourself deal with what's really going on without indulging in it. And it's a balance act. Have you ever noticed that life is a great balancing act? That if you're too assertive and strong, that the universe teaches you to be yielding and surrendered. And if you're too passive and la-di-da, the universe teaches you to be more stand up for yourself, those kind of things. And it's not about being right in the middle, it's about knowing when to hold them, when to fold them. Well, it's that kind of a thing. In your life, where do you need to be fully engaged, yet fully surrendered? Fully engaged means feeling your feelings. Feeling your feelings. I'm going to talk about a video I saw of Louis C.K. You know who I'm talking about, the comedian?
Yeah.
And he was on Conan O'Brien, and he was talking about why he doesn't give his kids smartphones. And it really does tie in here, because the first thing, he says the main reason is because the smartphones keep the kids from feeling anything. Because the minute they feel uncomfortable, they just go into the smartphone. He says, and in addition, he said, and it sounds challenging, but I think he's got a point. He said, every kid's got a little bit of the bully in them. That at some point growing up, a kid's going to try out the behavior of, you look stupid, or you look ugly. Now, if they do it face to face, they will see the response of the person going, and they go, oh, that didn't feel good. But if they do it on this, they don't ever get that. That's the first thing. And the second thing was even more telling. He said, you know, once we start to feel some uncomfortable feelings, if we'll let ourselves go into them, find out what they're teaching us, and move through them, as they say, the only way out is through. Then, underneath that, there's great capacity for joy, but only if we're willing to move through whatever that discomfort is burying within us. And he talked about a time that he was driving. He says, you know, I notice on the freeway, because he does a lot of commuting, everybody's texting while they're driving. Besides being dangerous, nobody gets to feel anything. He said, so I was listening to the radio, and there was a song by Bruce Springsteen that was one of these gut-wrenching songs, the heart-breaking songs. And he said, and I started feeling that feeling of, oh, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel that. He says, and I suddenly realized, no, I want to feel that. I'm going to feel that. I'm going to let that feeling come up. He pulled his car over in LA on the freeway to the shoulder. And he's parked his car, and see, I sobbed like a baby, and I let it out, and he said, suddenly, the rest of the day, I was filled with joy and wonder, and I had such a great capacity, because it was underneath that sadness I need to release. So being fully engaged is necessary to open your heart and feel what's there. I'll never forget what happened when my dad died. I was a good unimentalist, very, going to just be positive, and I didn't process my feelings. I really didn't engage with the grief that I felt. We've got a grief class coming up, which is a good thing for people like me. So I did that, and then about a year later, I was driving to the church that I served when I was a student in Salina, Kansas, which was 4 hours down Interstate 70. Has anyone in this room ever driven Interstate 70 in Kansas? Raise your hand. The only other road like it in the country is the Interstate 15 between LA and Las Vegas, which is to say nothing. Nothing at all, and it's straight line, and nothing moves. So you go into this trance, and it just brings things up in you, okay? So I'm going, but I had some music on, and the next song by my favorite band, The Grateful Dead, was a song written by the bass player for his father who was dying of cancer, and he sang it to his father while he was dying. It's a beautiful metaphor about life and the body and letting things go and the eternal nature of life. It's a beautiful song called Box of Rain. And just as it started, I said out loud, because I was alone, and besides I talked to myself, and I said, he sang it to his dad, and then all of a sudden it was like everything, I just cried and sobbed for about 50, 100 miles. And I didn't pull over, and the reason why is because in I-70 in Kansas there are no other cars. And it's straight, so it didn't matter. So I just kept going, but I let it out, and when I was done, I was able to give a talk from my heart. Walter Starkey, who's a great mystic, he was a personal student of Goldsmith, Joel Goldsmith, and he said, he's spoken in hundreds, he passed on recently, he spoke in hundreds of Unity churches, and he said that before he gave any talk on a Sunday morning, he said, I always go through kind of a dark night of the soul and upheaval emotionally, getting in touch with a deep-seated sense of uncomfortableness or pain, and I have to release it. And he told me that that's what Jesus meant when he said, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are those who mourn. First of all, blessed means, oh, how incredibly fortunate, lucky, and happy you will be when you mourn. And the word for mourn in Greek wasn't just, an owie or an ouchie or something sad. It was the deepest, most passionate lament in Greek. It was a very emotional, very deep thing. So lucky, so happy you will be when you feel this deep, passionate lament, because you will be comforted, which means that underneath that is this great reservoir of joy that will come up if you're fully surrendered yet fully engaged, when you're willing to move past the limitation that's holding you back, being totally open to everything but attached to nothing. Attached to nothing. It's fully surrendered. What is that? Jane Elizabeth Hart, who's my meditation teacher, Lynn's teacher for many years, wrote Spiritual Power Tools, came up with the 7 steps. She once said, Greg, right now I'm in my la-la consciousness. You probably call it God consciousness, but I call it la-la consciousness because I'm going la-la-la-la-la-la-la. There's a time in life when you just let it go, you just go into la-la consciousness. You say, well, how does that fit in with the other? It just does. It's a paradox, you've got to just let it go. There's a time in life, when it says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can, being fully engaged, and the wisdom to know the difference. So that la-la consciousness, I never forget when I was in ministerial school and I had this unjust, terrible assignment that was being foisted on me, and I was complaining to the sympathetic woman in the office, and she said, Greg, just bozo it. I said, bozo it? She said, yeah, just put on your Bozo the Clown nose, your Bozo the Clown smile, your Bozo the Clown wink, and just bozo it. Just go through it. And you know, there's a time for that. It's Lala consciousness. It's God consciousness, because you're not going to solve at the level of your upset and discomfort anyway. And there's a time to move through things. The only way out is through, but sometimes to move through it is to move into that Lala consciousness, to move into that childlike consciousness. Remember this, before Jesus was ever the great rabbi teacher, the great spiritual icon, he was a baby. And babies just are, they're in Lala consciousness. When they need something, they cry. There's no artifice, there's no artificial anything. Everything is just real. If indeed we accept an Orthodox view that Jesus was God incarnate, why would God choose to be a baby, totally incapable of meeting its own needs, and having to have everyone around take care of it? Because it's a part of the spiritual equation. It is a definite part of the spiritual unfoldment. Being in that surrendered state. Being in that space of, I don't know. Give us this day our daily bread. I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from tomorrow. I know I'm taking care of today. La 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 la. And it's not going into denial. And it's not being Pollyanna. It's being surrendered. And it's knowing when to hold them, when to fold them. So being the attitude, the miracle mindset, the attitude that brings about the best results is that attitude that says, my mind is open to everything, but attached to nothing. What Jesus called becoming as a child. Without that attitude, he said, you can never experience the kingdom of God. Open yourself to that, and yet it's fine to be fully engaged. Have a picture in your mind. Have an intention. Be clear within yourself. That's all good. That's within. And then the outer world, attached to nothing. For this moment, it's fine to give us this day our daily bread, but know that the future is in the hands of God. Be willing to let go of the pictures that we hold and then allow things to unfold. The studies that have been done, especially at Harvard Medical School, find that this is the attitude that brings about almost every one of those wonderful spontaneous remissions that they study, the miracles that people went through. They had this attitude of letting go of the outcome and just being in the moment and allowing that inner change to take place. One of the best expressions of this was one by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She put it so clearly. She said, if we're able to follow our own intuition and we let go of concern about what others are saying or thinking about us, if we're listening to our inner voice and our fellow human being who may be suffering, if we share our love without expectation of reward, we'll realize that each one of us is student as well as teacher, teacher as well as student, and our rewards will be manifold and will come when we least expect it. It's being open in that way. Here's a wonderful experience I had, another snow experience. Back when Rosalie was 6, she and I went skiing with all of her male relatives on Lynn's side of the family. Lynn had to stay home for that. So we're first of all, the Lala consciousness. We were on our way and we stopped in Burlington, Colorado at a restaurant. She was just 6. And since it was a bunch of guys, she had to go to the girls' room. We were in a hurry to get back on the road, but she waited till the very end, and so we're waiting for her, and we're waiting for her. We waited for 20 minutes. Finally, I had to get somebody on the staff, a woman, to go in and find out what happened. And she came out, she says, I don't understand it, but she was crawling around on the floor. And I says, well, thank you, and we got in the car, and I was not happy. So we're driving along, and we get about 3 miles down, and out of town. I said, where were you? And she says, well, it took me that long to crawl under all of the stalls and lock them from the inside. We kept driving. La, la, la. Then we got up in Winter Park, Colorado, and it was, again, the biggest snowstorm in the history of Colorado. 7 feet of snow. We were stuck for an entire week with nowhere to go. We couldn't get out. There was electricity. We had food. But there was no television, the battery died in the radio, there was no phone connections. We were just there. You'd think, oh, this would be a terrible, terrible experience. What a tragedy. It would be so nerve-wracking. No. I look back on it now, I believe that the close relationship I have with her was in part established that week. We had nothing else to do. No electronic distractions. We wrote love notes to each other and wrote comics to each other and played games. And all we had was pieces of paper that we rip out of the phone book finally and could write on. But we were able to be in the moment because we made up our minds. We gave the miracle mindset that we were going to enjoy this. This was going to be the best experience we'd ever had. The attitude of being engaged totally but fully surrendered, of having a mind that's open to everything yet attached to nothing. So I want you to take your personal miracle, the thing that you came in here this morning with, and I want you to just offer it in this light. This miracle mindset says, I am as a child. I have that God consciousness that says, I am attached to nothing. I am surrendered, fully surrendered. Even as I hold in my heart of hearts the desire, give us this day our daily bread, the desire for this moment, in this moment, to be fully engaged, to have my mind open to every possibility. And I take a moment to feel the spaciousness and the vibration in this room of yearning hearts and minds. The attitude of a baby before it learned how to smile. The openness with wonder. And just feel the energy. Let it lift you. Thank you, God, that we're fully surrendered and fully engaged. Our mind is open to everything and attached to nothing. And so it is. Amen. And it's so wonderful when people take notes and write things down, but now it's time to put everything down. All your papers, all your pencils. And take this time to just be. It's a time where sitting in the stillness and the silence moves you into a deeper awareness of what truly is important. So take a deep breath and let it out. Be fully surrendered and yet fully engaged. Let go completely and yet let your inner eyes open even as your outer senses close down. The mind of a child is open to everything but attached to nothing. Jesus said, become as a child. Open to everything and attached to nothing. So feel your spirits lift, your beingness open to all possibilities, and yet in the spaciousness of not being attached, there's a great and tremendous sense of freedom. The freedom Jesus expressed when he said, give us this day our daily bread. That knowingness that in this day, the now moment, the manna, the daily bread, is provided in abundance, completely detached from how the bread will show up tomorrow. Letting go of the need to know and moving into a great surrendered space of I don't know. Be fully engaged with your inner eyes open, your inner heart open, your inner mind attuned, yet fully surrendered, letting go, letting go, letting go. personal miracle may be, whatever your need may be, the miracle mindset is fully engaged with your inner eyes and ears open, your heart open, clear in your intention, and yet fully surrendered with the outcomes released with the mind of a child. In the words of Lao Tzu, with the mind of a baby before its face had even learned how to smile, with the innocence and wonder. The mind of a child open to everything and attached to nothing, and letting that miracle land, letting it manifest, letting it be. Simply allowing, letting things be, fully engaged, fully surrendered, open mind, attached to nothing, and so it is.